Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Respecting the Beer. My name is Gary Arndt, and we got the gang all here today. We have with us the man who is currently applying to NASA for a sample of lunar regolith from the Apollo mission so he can make the world's first hazy IPA out of moon dust, Mr. Bobby Fleshman. How are you doing, sir?
Very well. I'm in a battle for that with Sam Calzone from Dogfish Head, though. He'll probably get that.
Do you know how much that would be worth?
Yeah, I can imagine. He'll probably spend it just for a pet project.
You got Amber, so that's something.
For now.
Also with us is the historian of hops, the man who legally got all of his children's birth certificates changed so they were born at 5:47 a.m., Mr. Joel Hermansen.
Wow. With the twins, though, that would have been tough.
Well, there you have a 1 minute span. I mean, I don't know how long the birth took, but
Yeah,
hey.
as being there, there was a little more time involved there, and it wasn't 12 hours either. So yeah, but three of the four, yeah.
And also with us is a doctor who, if she was the doctor, would have a TARDIS shaped like a beer barrel. Allison McFleshman. And
Wimey wibbly wobbly, yeah.
I don't know, that one was a bit of a stretch.
Go team.
So what we're going to talk about today is kind of planning in a brewery. So we're recording this on a holiday. It's March 15th, the Ides of March, a day we all celebrate. And just on a personal note, to everyone listening, we should remember to keep the spirit of the holiday true to what it is. It's not about stabbing. It's about coming together to stab as a community. But we have many other holidays coming up. We got 547 Day. We got Mile of Music. You got Oktoberfest. You got Lagerfest. But this stuff just doesn't happen overnight. You can't just tomorrow something's happening, I'm going to brew. So let's start with how far ahead do you have to plan to know what you're going to have ready when these events occur?
Gary, before we get to that, can I just ask Bobby a quick question? Bobby, I need a keg of specialty beer that you haven't brewed yet next Tuesday. Is that possible?
Right, that's common. That's a good example of what we're asked in the tap room on occasion.
I'm just going to interrupt him
yeah.
now because I know his answer is going to be crappy.
Yeah.
So if you've ever seen the movie, the best Christmas movie ever, which is Nightmare Before Christmas.
Ooh, what about A Christmas Story?
It's fine, but it's in the top 5, let's say.
Okay.
But there's a wonderful scene after they've done their wonderful Halloween celebration, and the mayor comes the next day, and he's like, "We only have 365 days left until the next Halloween." That's Bobby after every single festival.
It was literally me after Halloween before we owned the brewery.
Oh my God.
That was my whole life.
But it's true. So
Yeah.
we start planning so Mile of Music is one of our biggest festivals. It happens the first weekend in August. July 31st actually is the first day of Mile this year. And
That feels weird.
Wait, I know. But it's thankful because it does. Anyway, we're very happy that it's starting July 31st. But we started planning for that probably in October, actually.
Yeah, fortunately, that one is lightweight in terms of planning. Execution, it's the most difficult 4 days of our year. But the city does that, and Willem's marketing and all the people behind Mile of Music do that stuff. But yeah, brewing side is stressful. But as far as out the way we prepare at the pub, we just got to make sure we're ready with glassware and staffing. There's not a ton that we have to do on the prepreparation side.
Well, we have to brew a lot of
But
beer.
yeah, on the production side, that's exactly right. Production side, it's not only that, but the next month after that, we are selling through our number one selling beer, which is Oktoberfest. And that beer takes 20 to 25% of our entire capacity, just one flavor. And to put that in perspective, we make something like 80 flavors a year. So one beer is 20 to 25%. So I'm already, as I even talk about it, getting antsy because we should be putting our first batch in the tank in the next couple of weeks. So that's where we are, and then we're looking 6 months ahead already.
Why? What is so special about Oktoberfest that it takes up so much of your resources to make?
Traditionally, you have to lager it, and if anyone's listened to this before, you tend to lager up to 12 weeks of beer, and so after you ferment a beer, you need to cold condition it, and there are a lager that is, and there are lots of reasons why we do this. Some of it's historical, some of it might be marketing, some of it might be just what feels right, but there are also scientific reasons why we want to lay a beer down like that for a good 3 months. And so when you do the math and you only have so many tanks, you realize you need to do it several times over, and quickly your calendar year is consumed by a beer. You need that many turns. We call it a turn in every tank of a batch. So we'll dedicate 1 or 2 of our tanks from now until sometime in June or July to making that beer.
And we have special lagering tanks that do this.
Yeah, so we'll primary ferment in these upright tanks, which are the ones that people probably are really familiar with, but they've been in a brewery in the last 30 or 40 years.
These are the ones that are tall, upright, and
Vertical.
they have the cone things on the bottom.
Call them conicals because of that cone. Lots of names that go by, but basically you do that primary fermentation, and when the yeast are essentially done, you send it over to a horizontal tank. And if you've ever been in a lagering brewery, like these little ones that you might have heard of, Miller, Budweiser, Coors, Schlitz, Blatz, all of these giant breweries from the past and present, they're lager breweries. And you've seen that on the tour, these gigantic tanks that might be 250,000 gallons. Those are lagering vessels. And we still carry that tradition on here of lager production. So we'll lay them down for several months in these tanks. We don't have enough of them, though, so we got to really be logistical about how we plan from now till August, for sure.
So why does Oktoberfest take up so much as opposed to, say, Pirates Cove and other lagers that you make?
Well, again, we make so much of it in a relatively short window of time. It just takes, and again, it's our number one selling beer. So not only is it our number one selling beer, but we have to produce it in such a short window. So the brewery has to go into Oktoberfest season. It's not even like it's not just a seasonal. It's our 6-month focus, and that's what happens.
Are we brewing Maibach this year?
Unfortunately, no Maibach unless we kick it out of the pilot system. Because again, this tank math. Before we started this, I was actually literally sketching on the screen in front of us the new expansion. We're going to add some tanks here, and that's going to free up capacity to make beers like Maibach, for sure.
So the reason I ask about Maibach is because I think, Gary, to your question, why Oktoberfest? I think people drink to the season, and there's something about the fall season that winter hasn't set in yet. You're embracing the fact that you don't have many days left to be outside, and we have got a beautiful beer garden. Everyone wants to go out and celebrate that before they can't anymore when the cold season sets in. But our box, we have box that we brew to each different season. And the Maibach is one in which you're kind of coming out of winter. And so you want to enjoy the beer garden, you want to get outside.
This is a double-edged sword. Maibach means May. So that's a double-edged sword. Oktoberfest, obviously, is October. People associate those with a month, maybe with 3 months if you're lucky, but they tend to move on. So what that means is you can sell a lot of that product within the window that people associate it with. But after that window, you don't want to have a stockpile that you got to get through for the next season for which it wasn't made.
So we need an April Fest beer.
Yeah. So we've joked about one of our favorite beers around here is our Fest beer, which is really what a modern Oktoberfest is in Munich. You won't find these amber Oktoberfests like we drink here. That's where Oktoberfest used to be. I mean, what it used to be. And now we drink these lighter colored ones that are kind of a riff on a Maibach, actually. Anyway, so where am I going with that? Oh, yeah. So we thought, well, how do we, because people want us to have it all year long. So we thought, why not call our Fest beer November Fest when it's November? Call it December Fest when it's, make it a joke where we have a 12-month Fest beer. And I think it would do actually quite well, and people might kind of get that joke. I should say that there's the why and the how. Why do we brew so much? Well, we live in lager country of this Oktoberfest. We live in the state that really lager brewing began in the United States in earnest at the scale that we know today. So this is people that drink lagers, and they love Oktoberfest. That's why we brew it. How we brew it, as you heard, it comes down to tank math and planning, but our neighbors across the alley, the Appleton Beer Factory, have been on here a few times. They have more room than we do. So we're really affording them to expand the number of tanks they have, and we're brewing a lot of this beer over there. So tanks that are 3, 4, 5 times larger than the ones we have, we brew into, and able to meet that demand. But again, you got to thread that needle. You want to have just enough, but not too much after October is over. Same with Maibach or any of these other types of seasonals.
To take a step back a little bit, I think why is planning such a big part? is because each beer has to be in the tank for a different length of time. And from a business perspective, as soon as a tank is empty, we're losing revenue. And so, because we've got the infrastructure, and if we're not making beer or if the yeast aren't fermenting the beer, because we don't make beer, the yeast do, then we're losing an opportunity to have a beer ready when it needs to be.
That symbiosis with yeast is funny because I am their servant. I get here every day at 5 a.m. and attend to the yeast. But then after all of this is done, they tend to go often either to cattle, we feed them to cattle, or we dump them down the drain. So they live a spoiled life until they don't. So, so that's sort of the symbiosis that we have here with our yeast, for sure.
Yeah.
Even the Belgians, if you go to Belgium and see where they ferment, they're probably some of the most literally spiritual. The monks are spiritual about the production of beer. They have signs saying to be quiet.
Respect them. Or
Yeah.
no, shh. Respect the
Beer
yeast.
fermenting, silence. It's all in
Silent,
Flemish.
yeah.
But in any case, yeah, people around the world worship the yeast for what they're doing.
Do you have any stories of your Oktoberfest prep where you brewed way too much, or you ended up you were on the shorter side, or have you been able to thread that needle every year that you've dealt with?
The first year we opened, we didn't even get one in the tank, so that was embarrassing. I mean, I knew we were going to have to make an Oktoberfest, and I hoped that it would be a popular seasonal. And turns out, as it turns out, it's our number one. That was embarrassing. So we turned it around on year 2, brewed a good amount, but it was embarrassingly small amount.
I'm going to interject.
Yeah.
I would say it's about,
We double it every year.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
we don't. But I want to say it's middle of February because you've already done this to me. I'll be in the morning, about 6 a.m.
Yeah.
He comes back from his yeast check because he checks the brewery every morning. So I'm sitting there on the couch with my coffee. He walks in and he goes, "How much Oktoberfest should we brew?" I'm like, how the hell should I
Yeah,
know?
like we have to
He's
pull
like,
out the
well,
crystal ball.
and he brings up this entire data sheet where he's got like these differential equations to solve the most complex problem of like, how do you thread that needle? And I'm like, I have
People
no idea.
are
I can
impossible.
completely see this story.
It's the
by
most
the way.
ridiculous thing. And I was like, dude, give me another cup of coffee and then I'll entertain you for just a minute and talk about what
This is why I
may work,
love
not
owning
work.
a brewery, because of all of these variables. It's impossible. It's an endless challenge. You know, what people drink, the number of breweries in competition, and on the supply chain. It just goes on and on and on and on.
It's a hard answer, I should say, to pinpoint because we don't know exactly
We
how.
have been doubling year after year,
Yeah.
but now we're growing at about 15 to 30%, somewhere in that range every year on Oktoberfest. I kind of tend to throttle it. I want to throttle it this year for a couple of reasons. That is decrease slightly because I want to build the demand up, but I also want to put a little more emphasis on our fest beer because I think that is an extremely popular beer, and I think there's a market finally that we've helped open for what is the modern version of Oktoberfest.
That beer is glorious. By
Yeah.
the way.
I mean, you have Oktoberfest on tap right now, right?
We do, and that it seems like we have a lot
we had some left over.
because we're selling through it. But we did pretty well. We made something like 200. Let's just say it this way, something like 300 kegs of beer. Let's say that. That's about what we made, and then we only ended up about 10 long of our estimate. So I'll take it. So so we sell those 10 kegs across our bar and finish. So we did really well there. I probably would rather run out though next year for a number of reasons. Like I said before, people think of Oktoberfest as an October beer. And the other reason is just to free up another line because we have too many beers. And our taproom manager is really annoyed with me sometimes. We give him too many things to sell.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're going to
He
try
does
to
a great job, though. He's constantly putting up with your, like, let's do this beer, let's do that beer. And he's like, I still have these beers that I need to
It
sell.
cuts two ways. He'll get up in the morning and say, hey, let's fruit this or let's blend that. Or he loves to mess around, too.
Y'all are a good pair. So the other... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, which is worse, too much or too little?
Supply and
I'm
demand.
gonna say-
You have to err in one direction or the other.
Well, yes. If you have too much, then what you've inadvertently done is exploited the economy of scale, right? And that means that you had less cost input on each of those kegs. If you have too little, it means you can move on to the next product that's more relevant to the season. So again, that's a tough question to answer. You would like to run out. You like your last pint to be sold on the street at Appleton's Oktoberfest on the 27th of September, and that be the end of it. That would be ideal if we could do that math.
So on a
But-
smaller scale, we have a beer that you may have heard of. It's called 547. When we don't have
Also gives me anxiety.
one ready because we have someone who's on staff as the demand coordinator for 547. We've had it to where we've run out in the tap room before it's ready from the tank. And there's
Yeah.
kind of been,
There's been judgment.
I would say true rebellion.
Between that and
there's,
Public
like,
House, which
an
this
uprising
is,
almost.
This is this is St. Patrick's Day weekend. The Ides of March, right? Today or
yes.
Today.
yeah, today.
And then
Yeah,
St. Pat's is on 2 days.
2 days from now. So anyway, bringing that up because Public House Pint or Irish Stout is the same way.
That's right. We started brewing that,
First, it was our number 2 beer that we ever made.
Yeah, but
think it was.
in January where we were starting planning exactly when and how we were going to get the
Yeah.
stouts ready.
Yeah, we brewed a lot of that.
We actually might need to add another fest next year because if Christoph's brother Andreas comes back from Germany to Wisconsin again, I think he drank in the 2 weeks he was here. I think he drank 13 barrels of fest beer.
Oh my gosh.
He thought that was the greatest beer ever.
That's
so
quite an
that
honor.
might have to factor into your supply
Yeah.
conversation.
People will
It,
oh, go ahead.
it was prolific.
Well, and what's funny is we're going through. It's funny we're bringing both of these beers up, 547 and Oktoberfest, because what we've done is we've created a beer to help balance the demand of both of those. In the case of Oktoberfest, it's fest beer. Also because we think that this market needs to be introduced to the blonde version of an Oktoberfest.
It's also lower in alcohol,
But
which is
in
nice.
the case of 547, yes, we've made Toronado, which is less alcohol as people ask for, and it's inspired by 547 with a modern twist. And what's happened is we thought we were going to help with our demands on production with both of those beers, and it hasn't changed the demand of the beer that they were made to suppress the demand of. So now we have another beer that's rising in demand to go alongside each of them. Back to the tank math, back to this expansion, back to all of these complexities of running the whole thing. Yeah, it never ends. How does it roll together? And we're talking about one event because I think it's worth talking about it a lot, Oktoberfest. But as you guys mentioned, there's 547 Day coming up in just a few months, honestly. And that's
when is 547 Day? We should probably know
we're actually going to have it on the 28th of June this year.
28th of June.
Yeah, it doesn't work out. So normally we'd like to riff on the June 16th theme.
Well, because May 47th,
Yeah.
547.
But that's okay. I think the scheduling made more sense.
People like to drink on a Saturday or a Friday.
Yeah, we're going to have our birthday on the 21st. That coincides with the Pride event in Appleton that day. We're going to have one hell of a party on the 21st.
And that's
then-
June 21st.
Yeah, June 21st. And we're going to be advertising to what we think is a very San Francisco-centric community that day that might want to come back in 7 days after to party with us on 547 Day.
Woohoo.
Because that's kind of what 547 celebrates. It really celebrates that beer, but also sort of that San Francisco slant to our brand.
Okay, I have to ask you, what is a San Francisco-centric community in Appleton,
I'm
Wisconsin?
thinking about the Pride community and how Harvey Milk and how there's so
Are
much.
they having a thing here?
Oh, yeah, there's a giant Pride event being planned for Jones Park. We're the official beer at. So we'll be pouring down there on our birthday, having the after party to that event at the brewery on our birthday. It's going to be a whole thing. So we're expecting to have one of our biggest days of all time on June 21st. So we thought, okay, let's not do 547 Day that day or even the day before because we need to ramp everything up for this one event. And then 7 days later, we'll come back after licking our wounds and have 547 Day.
And 547 Day, we've had this fun activity where we tie-dye T-shirts. So we have 547 T-shirts that you can tie-dye yourself.
Yeah, and we're planning to maybe run some for Pride events. So pre-tie-dyed.
Cool.
Yeah.
And there's also I don't know if you guys knew this, but there's also a 547 Day every Wednesday.
There is.
Which
Yeah.
we have to brew for every week. I think about that as a weekly event. We have to make
Right.
sure we
So
meet demand
if
on.
you're listening and you've not come to a 547 event on a Wednesday, we'd love to have you. Also, at next year's 547 or in 2 months, whatever, we're going to have a free throw contest for people who have drank at least 3 547s.
Oh my.
That's good.
Is this
TikTok.
with the Beanie Babies?
No. We're going to get a basketball hoop back here.
Oh, I
and
was
we're gonna-
thinking the little
Nope.
bag toss.
Nope, it's going to be a legit. Yeah, we'll get
Nope.
a baseline. People will come in, shoot 5 free throws, see how they do initially, and then after 3 5-47s, we're gonna. I've got Eric Eastman on it.
I propose
That's all
dunk
over it.
tank with Joel being the one on
Sure.
in the dunk tank.
We could totally do that. Is the volume of the water going to be?
I will write a check
547?
for $1,000 for unlimited throws of a baseball.
I would.
It's
I
on
will
record.
I will absolutely do that.
Except that if it was a tank of 547, he'd probably like it. So
Right. Yeah. We have. It's funny. We have one RJ. RJ. What's his name? Hayward. He's our. Other than Joel, he's also one
He's
of our
another
most
547
prolific
ambassador.
547 ambassador. I've done the math, and he drinks 1 tank a year himself of 547.
He's so great.
It's a lot. It's a lot, and I've gone on record as saying I don't know if I'm proud or embarrassed of that fact, but he is. He'll text me like I'm a drug dealer and say, "Hey, you got a 547 for me?" And I meet him in the alley with a keg of it.
You do not. That's not how it goes.
Literally have. Sometimes he comes to the front and gets a couple of pints beforehand.
RJ's
but
amazing.
Yeah, he's a great supporter from day one. He sold us all the steel in our building, and that's how I met him. I was welding this place up, and anyway, he was a steel salesman, and he became the biggest 547 fan until we met Joel.
It is really cool how a lot of the contractors that we worked with over the years, this becomes like their tap room second home. It's kind of nice.
Well, when they come here, you have to come again.
Absolutely.
Like I don't think there's anyone that's ever come here once
And-
unless they
and
were
if you-
traveling through.
To back up what you said, I don't think if you haven't been here on a Wednesday, you haven't been here. People always say that I've been to your place, and 9 times out of 10, they mean they've been here during Mile of Music, which is great. Mile of Music is fantastic. It's so much energy, but you haven't met us. You haven't seen who we are. You don't know what.
Of course, we're open other days other than Wednesday. I was about to say, coming
yeah,
anytime.
I'm
Are
saying.
I didn't know that.
I would say for sure come those other days of the week,
Yeah.
but you need to be introduced to the Wednesday crowd to really get.
It's a good vibe.
It's definitely that pub club that we've talked about a few times. Plus
So,
the
back-
And you get
547
to
club.
meet Gary.
That's true.
And
I
Gary's
mean, if
there.
you've listened to this podcast and you are sitting there wondering, I wonder what Gary's like in person.
Norm, he's kind of like
Wednesday.
Norm.
That's
yeah.
true.
Very
Chance.
disappointing. That you just, if you're looking for that, I wouldn't bother. Just
You were
come for the beer.
identified recently by your voice in public, right?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So
Well, so on the 13th, I do these TV spots around the country for like morning shows and stuff.
TV star, too.
And
Unbelievable.
Right.
I was doing this thing for the Fox morning show in Seattle, and so you get on Zoom like ahead of time, and the woman who handles it was like a fan of the show, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so amazing! Listening to your voice and everything." I was like, "Okay, yeah, I just listened to the episode on Emperor Claudius, and that was so great." It's like, okay, and we were talking about the lunar eclipse.
Ooh, which was amazing.
Yes,
So-
it was.
Wasn't
That
it
was-
gorgeous?
Yeah.
We had like perfect.
We
conditions.
did.
yeah.
Again, you can meet the voice every Wednesday.
Every one of them. Joel, you've also been, I don't know if you've been recognized like that, but people do recognize your voice when they're in the tap room and
Yeah.
from this podcast.
Yeah.
And I've had people say that the 547 guy, they like him when you're on the show. They don't know your name half the time. They just
Right.
say the 547 guy. But
Right. I've actually been recognized as far away as Madison.
which for people listening, that's about 100 miles from
Yep,
where we're
I
sitting.
have a 100-mile radius, I guess. I was also recognized at the donut shop this morning, too. They knew me by name, which
Has nothing to do with the podcast.
nothing
Because
to
of
do
your
with anything.
dedication to the donuts.
I can't figure out if this is a point of pride or shame, but
These donuts are amazing.
Going back to
Yeah.
the scheduling thing to keep
Yeah.
this podcast on track.
Yeah. That's the two big ones we mentioned, but there are many others. Yeah.
If Oktoberfest is, I don't know if I wouldn't say it's the most difficult, but it takes up a lot of resources.
Yeah.
In terms of time and quantity. So those are kind of, I guess, the two variables you have to look at. What are some of the easier ones in terms of turnaround? Because I know
Yeah.
you got barrel aged stuff. You
Yeah.
gotta time that
Those are
out.
tremendous. 2 years on some of those, if not 3. Yeah, those are different animals altogether. The ones, so when you're building a business plan and you start to run the math, I call it tank hours, tank weeks. Basically, look how much you can make, how long they can occupy, and how much liquid will be produced in the end. You got to balance these ridiculous beers with fast turning ones. So we knew from the beginning that we were going to be associated with Irish beers. And Irish beers are associated with nitrogenation. They're nitro beers. So we knew we were going to make a stout. And eventually we started making a blonde and then a red, and they were all nitro. But we did that for the brand's sake, but we also did it for production's sake because we can turn an Irish stout around in 7 or 8 days. It's a whole different process to do an Irish beer as opposed to a German lager for sure. But even like an ale or an IPA, like an English ale or an IPA, those take much longer than an Irish ale. They're not hop centric. The yeast are very quick at what they do. You don't carbonate them, you nitrogenate, which is an entirely different process. There's no nitrogen produced by yeast, so that's exogenous. You just inject it. But yeah, so that's one. The other side is on that you can say that that's our English/Irish personality, but on the German side, we can't just make lagers that take 12 weeks. That would be a killer. So we make Weizbier. We make a Hefeweizen and a Dunkelweizen. So light and dark wheat, unfiltered.
Suderbrau takes how long?
Suderbrau takes us about 7 to 10 days as well.
So
so does our dark one of the same dark note. Exactly. We knew that from the beginning. We needed to balance this tank time. So those are the two that help us.
I'm just going to interject with a fun story. So there's been many times. So if, let's say, our brewer calls in sick for a day or something happens and we can't brew that beer, or what's even worse is that there's some misalignment with getting the canner to work on a particular day, which is going to shift everything you do the next day, the day after, the day after. And so what happens then if one thing goes wrong, then we might not have the tank time we need. So that means we have to flip and do a different beer. And there's been I want to say 2 or 3 times where something's gone wrong upstream that we then rely on, well, let's brew Hefeweizen because that at least will be
every single week. That's what you don't
well,
ever
I mean, we don't brew
laminate
only
the brew schedule.
Hefeweizen, but we've had to rely
No,
on
but
which one's the
schedule's always
smallest
flipped.
tank time.
Yeah,
but then we have to make sure that we have the ingredients. Can they get here on time?
Yeah.
If they can, if there's a shipment delay,
There's
then that's
an
going to change
entire
what it's going to
semester
be.
here.
This is why Bobby's always stressed.
I enjoy that part, honestly.
That is a lie.
It's a board game for me. What stresses me out is, you're right, when equipment breaks down for the sake of having to repair it, not knowing what's going to cost or how to repair it, is the first domino. And if you can't solve that, then the whole week could be shut down.
Right.
So you're right. You're not wrong about that.
And so having a really good sense of thumb on the pulse of the tank time is something we rely on when we have to just quickly come up with a beer to then brew.
Well, there's another part of our brand that we don't get to bring up too much. And one day I hope to. Once in a while we'll make a Belgian triple or golden, planning to make a double, quad, saison, table beers. There's all these Belgian beers that I have in my brain. Part of that is because I love Belgian beers. Part of it is because we're a traditional brewery, and that's just another leg to that chair. Another part of that is they're really quick turnarounds. They ferment 75 degrees Fahrenheit versus 66 degrees Fahrenheit. What that means is you get way faster production to get to the finish line quicker. And you open up a whole new category to people that have been asking for it. But you got to watch out because that is kind of a niche market. So we've always put our toe in the water.
Is people will come in and they'll ask, hey, why aren't you brewing Belgians? You should brew Belgians.
Yeah,
and Bobby
squeaky
comes to me,
wheels.
he's like, they wanted Belgians. When are we going to do Belgians? You have just opened the door. Now, people are going to come in and ask for Belgians now.
I don't
even
open
more
the
so.
door lightly. I have put a saison in the tank 2 days ago. So we have a session saison in the tank now, ready for spring. It'll be ready for spring. 3.5% alcohol, peppercorns, orange zest, lemongrass. It's going to be, for all those people that have been asking for the Belgians, this is my segue back into that. Also into the low alc market. People want low alcohol beers. And
Like 547.
it's like 547.
Yes. Like a
when,
shot of
when you blend
547
it with
is low
water
alcohol.
2-to-1. I'm trying to kill two birds, one stone, but I am also aware that there are a lot of Belgian drinkers or a lot of squeaky wheels out there. We'll see where the numbers take us. We'll see how many people drink it.
Allison, this is why when people ask me to tell Bobby to brew a beer, I don't.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I love that
Twice a
folks.
week I get this.
Yeah, I love that folks are like, oh, you should brew this. You should brew this. It kind of goes in that what you should do. Like, oh, it's so hard.
So let me close this discussion then. The constant in this equation, so you got all these different variables, is kind of your equipment, right? So you have your shiny stuff in the back, and you got a little bit extra shiny stuff across the alley. when you're planning then for buying more shiny stuff,
As we're looking at on a screen in front of us.
so what are you looking at then in terms of like, okay, this is our priority for expansion that will let us do XYZ?
Yes.
Is it more lagering tanks?
Exactly.
Is it-
Boy, you have hit on the conversation of 2025.
All of it.
We
Yes.
have to figure out where is our brand going. And at this moment, I think our brand is two things. It's what you see outside and what you see inside. What you see outside is we make German lagers. We make a Helles and a Vienna lager.
That makes no sense, by the way, what you just said. You meant outside as in like out in the wild.
Out inside the tap room. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah,
so
yeah.
like in the grocery
Distribution,
stores when you go
wholesale,
to
retail.
restaurants.
That's what people know us as. I like to play a trick on those people. They go out and they discover us for those two flavors, and they come in and they discover what we do here. But I was going to
Which
say
are cask
condition ales and
Like
nitrogenated
NSB,
Irish.
which is amazing.
But again, that's the other two things I would think the market should see us for is the Irish stout. I think we have sort of the chokehold on that. And then the other one, the third leg of that has been evolving over the several years we've been open, and that's 547 and Toronado and the derivatives to that. It's obvious that we have claim to that market in Wisconsin to me. There's nobody doing West Coast as consistently as we are. We are committed to it in a way that no one is, for better or for worse, because the market is all about the hazy and cloudies. We like clear IPAs. We do make hazy, and we put everything we can into them. We don't do it to check that box. But we are emotionally, I think, that we are vested in making the West Coast styles. So that's the three legs to the chair outside of our brewery. We can't be everything to everyone outside, but that's how they should know us. That's how they should be introduced to us. So that's our future, and that's what's going to plan our tanks. That's what's going to plan how we grow.
But from the business side, it's hard because tanks are, shiny stuff's expensive. And it takes a little bit of time to get a return on that investment. Definitely we will have an ROI on it very soon, but it's just really about leveraging kind of the, saving up to do that sort of investment.
Yeah, and it's inside the tap room, the conversation goes back to anything beyond beer. People want things that are way past beer now. They want THC beverages. So in Wisconsin, you can use hemp-derived THC, CBD to make these seltzers. That's growing. So we're going to continue down that path. We're going to do more hop water. I have some really exciting news on hop water that I guess I can mention it now. There's a new hop product from Germany. As far as I know, there's a half dozen breweries using it in the United States. We just made a new version of hop water with it last week. What it is these hops come directly out of the field. All the oxygen is purged and they are sealed. And then when you use them, it's as if you literally pulled them off the plant, threw them directly in. We're seeing some remarkable results on hop water with that product. So that's another non-alcoholic product that we've been working on since 2019. What are other things? Seltzers, obviously, that's not going away as a market. I go down the list because I'm looking at the tanks in front of us, because that's part of why we're adding more tanks, is because we need to deal with these smaller batches of exclusive to the tap room products that are going nowhere. The market wants too many things now. It wants everything not beer. It still wants beer, but the growth is in the non-beer. Yeah.
I know when you've had coffee.
Oh yeah, Allison
We're
gave me my
talking.
third
I gave him
cup
a
today.
very large cup of coffee right before we started.
All right.
Oh damn! What? This is spiked with caffeine.
Lots of caffeine.
Oh, he snuck
You're
it
very
in on me.
chatty.
That's going to wrap up this episode of the show. Make sure to subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player so you never miss an episode, and join the Facebook group and Patreon, where we have been posting content that you cannot get on the regular podcast feed. Links to both of these things are in the show notes. And until next time, please remember to respect the beer.